Lobbies and Gentlegrams, we just witnessed the conclusion commemorating the comedic decline of the courthouse Karen, Kendrick Lamar evolving into his final form, revitalizing the competitive spirit within hip-hop, and making history bringing super bars to the Super Bowl, alright? Forget what your auntie's saying about this performance, forget what your 65-year-old coworker's saying about this performance. I'm a white dude in Canada, I got my earplugs on, I'm blocking out any Graham Glazer, any Aubrey Gobbler. I'm having people tell me that Kendrick was scaring the garden hose. We needed someone like Adele on that stage singing her heart out. I don't want to hear it, alright? This was a night to remember for hip-hop, for New Orleans, for LA, for rap battles. Just when you thought the essence of a diss track might have been threatened with lawsuits and legal filings, Kendrick showed us that the only thing getting filed is the eulogy papers on Drake's career, and that man puts the L in Lobby. Now we're going to break down every aspect of this performance, from the setlist to the guests, to the outfits, to the stage, every L that Drake took, every statement that his lawyer made, and exactly how this just became one of the most legendary moments in hip-hop history. So the show starts off with an aerial view of the stage, which is built to be this massive PlayStation controller. And remember now, this show wasn't just performed by Kendrick Lamar. The entire set design, all the outfits, all the imagery was concocted by his company PG Lang, which is essentially him and his co-founder Dave Free, and both of them designed every aspect of what you see tonight.
That's all PG Lang. That is us sitting day in, day out, from the edits, the production, the stage design, the music, the sound tech. It's everything across the board, and it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of creative individuals. I can't sit here and say it's all me, because these are people that are just as passionate and want to see us win, but also want to put out something that lives a long, long time.
And it was very calculated. The entire set was minimal. You didn't see a lot of different flashing colors. There was no band. The focus was really just on Kendrick, and not on the hits either. The song choices for this set list was a statement in and of itself, for several different reasons that we'll touch on shortly. But ultimately, Kendrick wanted to keep this strictly focused on rap. You didn't hear him singing hooks. This wasn't about going through his entire catalog, all his biggest songs. This was about hip-hop and where Kendrick Lamar is at right now. And it's interesting hearing him discuss how he approached concocting this set list. When you have only 13 minutes, you really have to place a lot of value on every detail and every record you're doing, especially because you're not just performing in front of your fans, you're performing in front of basically 30% of America, if not more. So for Kendrick to choose the songs that he did was interesting because, again, he didn't go with the hits. He didn't go with the songs that can necessarily appeal to a broader mainstream audience, but this was all part of the plan, and you'll see that once we break down the whole show.
Mr. Morale is like an hour and 30-minute tour, so it's like smack down all the way to 13 minutes. It's interesting because it lets you know your perspective on how you think about catalog and the music. For me, I love being present. I love being present, man. It's very hard for me to live in the past. It's very hard. I respect the past wholeheartedly, but being in the now and being just locked into how I feel and the energy I have now, this is me, this is Kendrick Lamar, 37 years old, and I still feel like I'm elevating. I'm still on the journey, though.
And it's interesting that he brings up being in the present, being in the now, because this entire set list was focused on where Kendrick is now. Instead of going way back to Good Kid, Mad City and to Pimp a Butterfly, songs that he revisited heavily on his 2022 Super Bowl halftime performance with Dr. Dre, he instead decided to draw more focus on his current catalog, his new album GNX, and a couple of his more recent hits from Damn or the Black Panther soundtrack. But again, don't forget, the stage was designed like a PlayStation. Kendrick knew that he had to, quote-unquote, play the game. And this whole set is Kendrick taking you through his evolution and how he's reached his final form. He emphasized that this performance was about telling a story.
Storytelling. I've always been very open about storytelling through all my catalog and my history of music. And I've always had a passion about bringing that on whatever stage I'm on, you know, whether it's a war tour or whether it's 500 people at Key Club. I've always had a form of that.
And the emphasis on being present was absolutely felt throughout this entire performance.
The passion I have now is still the passion I had then. And I think that carried on to the Super Bowl. So it was all about being present. As long as I was present in the studio and present in whatever that line was or whatever that mistake was, rapping or doing hooks or choruses or whatnot, I was present in that moment. I felt that passion. I think being present and not actually foreseeing everything kept me in the grounded state of mind in order to be at, big stages like this.
So it starts off with the PlayStation loading up, the game begins, and we get an intro from Samuel L. Jackson, who's dressed up as Uncle Sam, and he welcomes the audience into the performance, which he dubs as the Great American Game.
It's your Uncle Sam, and this is the Great American Game.
Obviously, this is in reference to the Super Bowl being the Great American Game, but simultaneously also a reference to the game of pursuing the American dream, thriving within modern day society, and of course also the whole battle being a game in and of itself. And Kendrick kicks the Super Bowl performance off by performing the song that we heard on the GNX trailer. It's unnamed, people are calling it Tiramisu, and again, you'll see as the set list goes on, like the song choices are a statement in and of itself. This is not the type of track that we've ever seen performed on a stage like this. And he actually previews a couple extra bars than what we heard when he initially previewed the sample, and these lines are basically a prelude to, how Kendrick thinks he's gonna perform within this game, the Great American Game, but also most definitely a heavy subliminal to Drake as Kendrick raps, "Remember I said I was the greatest back when you debated the number 1 and number 2. The topic was always hilarious to me. You carried him to me. I brought out a..." And then he makes the noise of a firearm. And we know obviously the conversation of who's the greatest has been going on for years now. This whole beef kicked off with First Person Shooter, where Drake and J. Cole were rapping about the big three being them and Kendrick Lamar. J. Cole saying he was the GOAT, Drake saying he was the GOAT, Kendrick saying F the big three, it's just big me. But years before that, in 2017, Drake had a song called Galchester where he rapped, "No, I said top 5, but I'm top 2, and I'm not 2, and I got 1. And then years later on Family Ties, Kendrick said, "Smoking on your top 5 tonight." Now he's basically saying, like, remember when we used to have these conversations, then you brought him out to me, I battled him, and you know the outcome at this point. And this is all happening as Kendrick's performing on top of a GNX, the car that his most recent album was named after, the car that his father actually drove him home in on the night he was born. So it's all symbolic, right? He started off life, or the game of life, in a GNX, and now he's starting off the Great American Game, this performance, on top of the GNX. And there's like dozens of dancers that are just coming out of this car as he's performing. I don't know how they all fit in this or how they made it look like they were all inside that car, but there's a lot of bodies in there. And then the lights go off and Kendrick says, "The revolution's about to be televised. You picked the right time, but the wrong guy."
The revolution about to be televised. You picked the right time, but the wrong guy.
Then Kendrick goes into Squabble Up, another interesting choice for the Super Bowl stage. And as he concludes the song, all the dancers start forming together, each of them wearing either red, white, or blue, symbolizing the colors of the American flag, but also the unity of the Blood and Crip gangs within LA and the peace that Kendrick was trying to bring to his hometown. Then Uncle Sam comes back out, displeased with Kendrick's performance within the game, saying that it's too loud, it's too reckless, it's too ghetto. Again, this is Kendrick emphasizing that he's playing the game his way and playing the most unconventional songs possible on the largest stage in America. And Samuel then asks him, like, do you actually know how to play this game?
Mr. Lamar, do you really know how to play the game?
And to that, Kendrick responds with the hits. He goes into Humble and DNA. And while he's performing, the dancers, again dressed in red, white, and blue, form the American flag, but they're cut in half with Kendrick in the middle, again emphasizing the division within American society. And on a side note, running halfway across this massive stage, or field I should say, while you're trying to rap this word-heavy song like DNA is insanely impressive. Like, anyone complaining about this performance not having enough melody or not getting a singer in general to be the halftime performer, I don't think they understand the insane breath control that goes into running and rapping simultaneously. Plus, this is the whole point, right? Kendrick showing you that he's not going to be playing the game in the traditional sense. And then we get into one of my favorite moments of the performance and one of my favorite tracks we've heard from Kendrick in the last year, which is none other than Euphoria. And the facial expressions Kendrick's making here are hilarious. Like, this is the biggest victory lap we've ever seen in a rap battle in history. And this is the absolute embodiment of the boogeyman persona. Kendrick also changes some of the words to the song, which he does a couple times with different songs throughout the performance. And it's important to note, as he's performing Euphoria, a song where he's talking about walking his enemy down, he's walking down this long white strip, which eventually leads him to a streetlight with a bunch of guys. None of them are dancers. They're all just kind of hanging out by the streetlight. And Kendrick does this a cappella rendition of Man at the Garden. And the performance of this song with no beat behind it was definitely intentional, because in an interview and promotion of the Super Bowl, Kendrick had said that on every single one of his albums, there's always this one song that he wants everyone to really hear the messaging behind. And Man of the Garden was that song for him off of GNX.
With my projects, it always be that one record that I want everyone to hear in order to push the narrative or just the message and the tone that I want to get across. To preserve a space for that one that I want everyone to hear, that's what pushes me, man. That's why I like the Man at the Garden, and even the fact that it's at the top of the record. Man in the Garden, I mean every word on that motherfucker, man. That's probably the easiest record to write.
And he ends the performance of this song by rapping, "It's important, I deserve it all because it's mine. Tell me why you think you deserve the greatest of all time." Again, remember that Kendrick's in a game here. He's telling you essentially why he thinks he deserves to win. Then we transition into another one of my favorite moments from this performance, when we hear the beat start for Peekaboo, another highlight off of GNX. But before we get into that song, Uncle Sam pops back up saying, "Oh, I see you brought your homeboys with you, the old cultural cheat code. Deduct 1 point for that." Basically saying, like, songs like this and, you know, a bunch of the homies just kicking it on the street corner is not how you properly play the game of appeasing a mainstream audience like this, but also kicking it on the street corner is not how you play the game of life.
Scorekeeper, deduct 1 life.
But Kendrick doesn't care about the criticism. He's saying, what are they talking about? They're talking about nothing. And then the funniest moment of the performance comes when Kendrick says, he spawned up like a wild Pokemon. But it's dope to see that he actually raps AZ Chucky, if that's how you pronounce his name's verse on this record. And they filmed Chucky's performance to seeing Kendrick do his lines on the Super Bowl stage while he's watching it at home with his family and friends. I'm going to try to play this clip if I don't get copyrighted right here. Also, it's important to note that up until this point, we've really only seen Kendrick interact with male dancers or just male fill-ins throughout the performance. There's been no female presence. And this is where we get that. But before we get into that, another little Easter egg, which might be a reach, is that the entire song Peekaboo was performed on the part of the stage that's the X button of the PlayStation controller. There's a whole theory online. I believe it was discovered by the YouTube channel Thought Crimes with a Z at the end. Check them out. They're a very dope channel. But they noticed that on Kendrick's song with Kodak called Silent Hill, Kodak might be referencing XXX Tentacion's death. Kodak rapped in the studio with K-Dot fresh out the feds, and it was at that time when he was in jail that he met Derozan Williams, which was one of the individuals involved in taking X's life. I'm not going to dive too deep into this theory, you guys can check it out, but the sample at the beginning of Peekaboo is Helping Hand, which is a direct reference to the Helping Hand Challenge, which was a charitable launch that was initiated by XXX, which Drake ripped off for his God's Plan music video. X was public about his disapproval of this. We know there's been rumors that Drake very much allegedly put money out to get XXX robbed. On Silent Hill, Kendrick rapped, "Peekaboo can't hide behind your money, dog." This song obviously being called Peekaboo, and he raps, "Why you acting tough on IG Live? Peekaboo, you know my little guy's off they rocker." And on a separate Drake track, after XXX passed, he rapped, "If he held his tongue on that Instagram live, he'd be alive again." I bring all this up to say, it's interesting that Kendrick performed Peekaboo on the part of the stage that was in the shape of an X within the video game controller. But back to our regular scheduled programming. Essentially, Kendrick ends the Peekaboo performance off with a couple ladies saying Peekaboo. And then we get into another one of the funniest parts of the performance where Kendrick says, "I want to make a move. I want to perform their favorite song, but I know they love to sue."
I want to perform their favorite song, but you know they love to sue.
And then the ladies say, "What song?" And then we hear this.
What song? Yeah, that song.
And then he kind of contemplates whether or not he wants to play it and says, "You know what? Instead, I think I'll slow it down."
Oh, maybe I think about it. Oh, no. You know what? I slow it down.
And this is where we get the SZA guest appearance, and they go into their massive hits like Luther and All the Stars. And this is really where we see the only aspect of commercial appeal throughout really this entire Super Bowl performance. I said in a previous video that even if SZA wasn't on this stage with him, it made sense that Kendrick did All the Stars. It's a cinematic anthem. It's one of his biggest songs. It perfectly fits this type of stage, this type of audience. It's also low-key a subliminal at Drake because around this time, Kendrick was at the height of his mainstream career with his album Damn. It actually beat Drake's album that year, More Life, in sales and everything. And Drake, just like with First Person Shooter, was doing his best to bring in that camaraderie and eliminate competition by essentially embracing it. He was congratulating Kendrick on the sales of his album Damn, saying amazing to see our music moving. He even liked a comment that said, we need J. Cole, Drake, and Kendrick all in the same song. Amazing that eventually they actually want to do that with First Person Shooter, which started this entire beef. But regardless, All the Stars was Kendrick's response to that by saying, you know, F you and all your congratulations. I hate people that feel entitled. Look at me crazy like I ain't invite you. Oh, you important. You're the moral of the story. I don't even like you. But anyways, Kendrick and SZA do these two massive hits. On a side note, I like how they kind of integrated SZA within this. Like, she's a massive superstar right now, arguably as big if not bigger than Kendrick, but she played her role well. Like, she understood the assignment in that this was Kendrick Lamar's big moment, this was his show, but she was still a really nice addition to it. She absolutely killed it with these vocals. And then Uncle Sam comes back in, letting Kendrick know he's playing the game well with this song selection. He emphasizes, like, that's what America wants. Nice, calm, relaxed. This is how you should, you know, integrate within society and play the game of life.
That's what America wants. Nice and calm.
And he's letting Kendrick know, like, you're almost at that finish line. You almost beat the game. Don't mess it up. But as he says that, we start to hear the beginning of the end for Drake as the instrumental to Not Like Us is again teased.
You're almost there. Don't mess this.
And as the instrumental plays, Kendrick raps, it's a cultural divide, I'ma get it on the floor, 40 acres and a mule, this is deeper than the music. Yeah, they tried to rig the game, but you can't fake influence.
You tried to rig the game, but you can't fake influence.
And this goes back into what Not Like Us was all about, right? It was bigger than the music. It was bigger than Drake. It was symbolic of that cultural divide, with Kendrick emphasizing that Drake was not of the same ilk, the same background, the same upbringing, which is congruent to the essence of hip hop and where it started from. And that's where this line in the sand was drawn. That's where this divide culturally stemmed from. And this whole performance is Kendrick showing you that he's not going to play the game simply to appease the white, middle-aged general population of America. He's going to play it authentically. You can't fake influence. And he most definitely plays it authentically here because he plays the entire first verse of Not Like Us, front to back. This was the main question of the night, right? Will he play this song? The song that is currently the subject of a defamation lawsuit between Drake and the record label UMG, which distributes both Drake and Kendrick's music. UMG has come out to say these claims are full of BS. The CEO of UMG, Lucian Grange, was high-fiving Dr. Dre at the Grammys last week as Kendrick went up to receive 5 different Grammy Awards for Not Like Us. So him performing it on this stage wasn't just him saying F you to Drake. This was an F you from the entire industry. And we know that Drake likely filed this lawsuit in an attempt to stop this song from being performed on this massive stage. 50 Cent, who had been an avid Drake defender, was asked what he thinks about the lawsuit, and he essentially defended it by saying that he thinks Drake's intentions were to scare the record label into stopping Kendrick from further using the song to defame Drake. And even today, Drake's lawyers released a statement saying Universal Music Group is masquerading as a champion of artistic freedom by calling its actions merely quote-unquote entertainment. But there is nothing entertaining about PDF file or abuse in the real world. We are confident that the evidence we will ultimately present at trial, including information we've already learned and continue to receive since filing the lawsuit, will expose UMG's gross prioritization of its own corporate profits and executive bonuses over its exclusively signed artists' well-being and the truth. But on a side note, I mean, yes, right? A whole purpose of a record label is to gain profits. It's not to expose the truth, because if that was the case, tons of Drake lyrics wouldn't have been able to be published. Even in this beef particularly, if this is genuinely what Drake believes, then UMG wouldn't have been able to release his Family Matters record because that also contains a bunch of horrible allegations against Kendrick. And what's crazy is there's literally like OVO Twitter accounts that are tweeting out saying like, if any of you guys have any information that will help Drake in this lawsuit, please send it forward and we will email it to his lawyers. Like, it's crazy the length that his own fan base is going to try to destroy the essence of a rap battle, of rap disses, when Drake himself has been involved in so many rap beefs of his own. Don't forget, he did very similar things to Meek Mill 10 years ago. Yes, the allegations in the diss records weren't as ruthless as Not Like Us. However, he was out in Philadelphia, he was in Toronto at his OVO festival, performing back to back multiple times with memes of Meek Mill plastered all throughout the screen. There was no outrage for that, but this is definitely different. Like, what Kendrick just pulled off at the Super Bowl with this performance, Drake's got to be in Australia punching the air right now like a kangaroo. Like, this will forever live on in his legacy as not only the most damaging diss track to his own career, but probably the most impactful diss record of all time. It's pushing boundaries in every single way, right? It just became the most awarded song or rap song at the Grammys of all time. It's now obviously the first diss song to be performed on a Super Bowl stage, and he's calling Drake out directly by name here. Not just Drake, but also Party Next Door, Party at the Party playing with his nose. He rapped that. He said, Baka got a weird case. Why is he around? Of course, he couldn't say PDF file on that stage, so he said Certified Lover Boy, certified, and then he just let out a yell. But he did say that A minor line. And if you thought the crowd was loud at the Grammys when they played that line, think about a stadium of 50,000+ people chanting that line. It's really crazy to think that we're really living in a reality where that actually just happened. At the same time, Kendrick had two of Drake's ex-girlfriends on stage with him during this performance, with SZA, who Drake dated back in 2009. And even worse than that was Serena Williams, who was crip walking all throughout this performance. She's also a fellow LA native who dated Drake from 2011 on and off until 2015. Drake actually got in a beef with Common over Serena Williams. That's when we got the Stay Scheming verse from Drake. He also dissed Serena Williams' husband on his 2022 album, Her Loss, saying that he's a goofy. And recently this summer, Drake released his 100 gigs footage, which was a bunch of behind the scenes of him in the studio. And in one of the videos, you hear him on a phone call with his mom detailing the lyrics of his song with Rihanna, Too Good. Ironically, Rihanna was also a woman who Drake, I believe, had dated on and off for a couple years around the same time as Serena. And he's on the phone with his mom telling her that the song Too Good was actually about Serena, but he wanted to package it in a way that she could even enjoy the song and not be too offended by it. I guess that didn't work because she was definitely enjoying Not Like Us a lot more. And then Kendrick concludes the performance with TV Off, where he brings out Mustard. Again, such interesting choices in the set list because the Super Bowl is usually based on nostalgia-heavy songs or records. In the last couple of years, we saw Rihanna, Usher, J-Lo, Shakira. The choice of Kendrick Lamar was unconventional to begin with, but the songs that he then decided to go with were even more unconventional. And again, such a statement considering the fact that he's the first hip-hop artist to ever solo headline the Super Bowl halftime show. Even when he was on stage with Dr. Dre, Eminem, Snoop Dogg, Mary J, and more back in 2022, there was that huge nostalgia factor back then as well, because obviously these were some of the biggest rappers in the game and they all performed some of the biggest hip-hop songs of all time. 50 Cent did In the Club, Eminem did Lose Yourself, Dre and Snoop did Still Dre in the next episode. Like, to go from that to then TV Off and Peekaboo and all these Drake disses and subliminals within the performance, it's Kendrick making a statement. There's a cultural divide. He's not conforming. He's introducing white America to the essence of hip-hop, battle rap, competition, bars. Like, aside from the SZA songs and Humble and DNA, I don't think we heard a single hook throughout this entire performance. It was all based on rapping, and I really hope that with such a massive audience seeing a performance like this, it helps break the boundaries or break that divide between people who might misunderstand hip-hop. And I definitely think that this whole battle and everything Kendrick Lamar has done in the last 12 months has ushered in this new creative renaissance within hip-hop in general. Competition has never been more present within the genre. I mean, aside from Kendrick and Drake, we saw J. Cole in the mix. We saw Chris Brown and Quavo having their own back and forth. Recently, we saw Joey Badass going at the entire West Coast, and the entire West Coast coming back to attack him. And like Kendrick said on Man in the Garden, I did it with integrity, and still they try to hate on me. At least I think that's what he said. I could be messing the lyrics up, and it's ironic because that's the one song he said he was hoping his audience would actually digest every lyric of. But what I also found very interesting was the outfit choices. Aside from the red, blue, and white clothing that his dancers were wearing, which obviously symbolized not only Blood and Crip gangs, but also the American flag. Kendrick and Mustard were also dressed in red, white, and blue, with Kendrick wearing a varsity jacket that said Gloria on the front. If you guys didn't know, Gloria is the final track off GNX. Gloria is the name that he gave to his pen, the pen that he writes all of his rhymes with. Also, Gloria being like glory to God. So wearing that jacket, which is an ode to the vehicle that's producing all of these records, while not conforming to the norms of the Super Bowl stage, performing what feels authentic to him, it's all symbolic. It all ties in together. And what also ironically ties in together is the fact that Kendrick is wearing a chain that has the lowercase a. Now, this is the logo to his PG Lang company, but it's a lowercase a. A minor is written with a lowercase a. And when Mustard comes on stage, he's wearing a chain that says M. Obviously, the M stands for Mustard, but when you have them both next to each other, you have an A and you got an M. The initials of A minor. Just a little Easter egg there. And the performance concludes with Kendrick saying, turn his TV off, and all the lights go out, and lit up we see the words game over. And ultimately, what a legendary game this was. From the beginning of the performance, where Kendrick's literally just playing an unreleased bar-fueled track with sneak disses aimed at Drake, to Uncle Sam narrating the entire performance as Kendrick's Gemini twin powers up. He takes you through this whole narrative from the GNX car that he rode home with his father in from the hospital, to what's seemingly a neighborhood street light where he raps Man in the Garden. He's walking us down as he's walking Drake down with Euphoria. He tackles everything from the unreleased snippets to the diss tracks to the hits with SZA, all while really giving us probably the most unconventional Super Bowl halftime show that has ever went down in Super Bowl history, and doing it this way for the sake of breaking boundaries within hip-hop. Like, who would have thought even in 2013 that it would have been possible for a rapper to solo headline the Super Bowl show with unreleased music, album cuts, and diss tracks, all while doing it with barely any hooks, no backtrack, a whole theme throughout the entire performance, a whole narration, a whole story essentially. I don't remember any other Super Bowl halftime performer having this sort of storyline the way Kendrick did. Rihanna didn't do that, The Weeknd didn't do that, but all the while, the story wasn't too complex where you couldn't really wrap your head around it if you were in the audience. Then all the little sneak disses at Drake, including his ex-girlfriends within the performance, rapping the A minor line, doing everything that Drake's lawyers tried to stop him from doing. It's all unprecedented. And think about everything within this battle that has just conquered uncharted territory. The first diss song to ever receive a lawsuit, the first diss song to ever be awarded 5 times at the Grammys, the first diss song obviously to ever be performed at the Super Bowl. I'm so happy he did Euphoria as well. That's probably my favorite diss track to come out of this beef. One of my favorite moments of this whole performance as well. And just to say, hey Drake, I hear you like him young, while viciously staring into that camera with that evil grin, when we've barely seen Kendrick Lamar smile throughout really this entire year. Music videos, the pop-out show, photo shoots, he's never really smiled. He was definitely smiling when he said, hey Drake, I hear you like him young. And this was a moment to really just put hip-hop at the forefront of America, of the world. Would I have preferred to have heard a Money Trees, a King Kunta, Loyalty or Love off a Damn? I mean, maybe that would have fit the performance or the audience better, but ultimately Kendrick was trying to send a very clear message here. There's a cultural divide. He stands strong on the right side of history. This is how he's choosing to play the game. And it's through the messaging within these records that have helped him win this very same game. And I think this is going to break the door down for a lot of rappers in the future to follow this formula of authenticity, strong messaging, and an even stronger focus on lyricism. I think this is really going to usher in a new creative renaissance within the culture, and this performance marks the turning point. Aside from that, you had Serena Williams backstage emphasizing that nothing was held back at this Super Bowl performance, because if she crip walked like that at Wimbledon, she would have been fined.
Man, I did not crip walk like that at Wimbledon. Ooh, I would have been fined. It was all love.
Even Snoop Dogg, who had posted Drake's tailor-made freestyle diss track where he used Snoop Dogg and Tupac AI vocals to diss Kendrick, even Snoop was supporting Kendrick throughout this performance, letting the world know that he is the GOAT.
If he do that record, he #1. They ain't talking about nothing. They ain't talking about nothing. That's the GOAT, cuz. He the GOAT.
And aside from that, on the less positive note, Kanye had a commercial again this year at the Super Bowl, if you want to even call it a commercial.
So what's up, guys? I spent like all the money for the commercial on these new teeth. So once again, I had to shoot it on the iPhone. Go to .com.
And what's interesting is Akademiks a couple of days ago actually unfortunately leaked this entire set list for this performance. I had listened to it a couple of days back. If you guys have been keeping up with the channel, I mentioned this in a video, but I didn't spoil the set list for you guys. I just didn't believe that he actually had the real set list. We've never seen a Super Bowl set list leak in history. And when it came out, I'm like, there's no way this is real, right? All of these album cuts off GNX, him doing the Tiramisu song, him actually doing Not Like Us in full, and Euphoria. It didn't seem real, but it was. And Akademiks said that he actually got the leak from one of the employees at the arena, and he said he only leaked it because he wanted Kendrick to change the set list because he thought it was bad.
You don't leak shit, y'all get sucked. I told y'all what's gonna happen if it can happen. Like, yo, nothing bigger than the chat. Let me tell you how I got that nigga Kendrick's fucking Super Bowl performance. A nigga who worked at the arena is a chat. Can't beat the chat. Stop it. That's how I got it.
Yeah, I took a car and that was it.
Get my Interscope. How'd you get it? The NFL hit me. Act, we gonna sue you. We'll do the. I told him, I said, I'm gonna call him Drake. No, I Drake my mans, but y'all gonna sue me? Because I don't sue. Actually, I would sue. I'm playing. Actually, I would. Anyway, they sent me an email this morning. They said, don't mention the track list. Because apparently when we leaked it, they got paranoid. You know what I did? I went live on Rumble. Shout out to Rumble. I went live on Twitter and I leaked that. I just want to show y'all, any of y'all journalists who ever think y'all on my level suck I'm gonna end it like that. I seen all y'all trying to kick my back in because y'all thought I was done. I'm gonna keep leaking everything. I don't f with y'all. I don't f with Kendrick. I don't f with no artist. It's gonna be like that for life, and keep getting info from me.
I don't know. I think he leaked it because he knew that performing Not Like Us on that stage would do irreparable damage to his Champagne Petition Poppy, Courthouse Karen, Drizzy, Defamation Drake. But regardless, history was made tonight. Let me know what you guys think of this performance. Did it live up to your expectations? Did it surpass them? Were you pissed that he didn't perform certain songs? Were you surprised that he performed certain songs? Do you think he was a little too ruthless on Drake? Do you think new music's coming? Or is this the final segment of Kendrick's massive, legendary, historic victory lap in this battle? Let me know in the comments, and I will catch you guys in the next one.